How y'all doing? Good. Awesome, awesome. Well, I'm pumped. I'm excited. Thanks for coming out. My name is Chris Bounds. Some of you might remember, not too long ago, actually, my wife and I, we actually used to do events kind of like this every single month out in Sugar Land. And then this thing called COVID happened, shut us down. You may have heard about it in the news. So this is our first live event that we've done since COVID. We've done a lot of other online stuff, but we're happy to get out in person and start meeting some people. So hope you're excited, because tonight we're going to be talking about money. Who wants to talk about some money? Yeah. Specifically, where you can get the money, how you can get the money, how you can use the money to buy more deals. That's ultimately what we're trying to do, right? Leverage the financing to do more deals and ultimately build wealth, build passive income. So, a couple sponsors I want to thank for helping put this event on. They're partners that I've worked with for years. Love these guys. They've been very valuable in our journey in real estate, one of which is Quest Trust Company. They've allowed us to use their classroom for this event. So thank them. If you don't have a self-directed IRA and you want to learn more, they've got tons of great educational events. Definitely check them out. And I'll actually be back here this Thursday where they're going to be doing an introduction class on how you can use self-directed IRAs and those type of retirement accounts to grow wealth tax-free. Anyone want to do that? So definitely check them out. And then the other one is Jet Lending. Since the very beginning, Jet Lending, they actually funded my wife and I. It was our very first deal. And I know you're going to hear a little bit more about what they do when we bring up our guests. Because the two guests we have, they've got a massive experience in financing. They've done collectively thousands of deals, hundreds of millions of dollars in real estate, and they've got a thing or two to share that you might be able to write down and take home. So a little about me. My wife and I, we got started investing back in 2011 when we got married. She tells the story a lot better than I do, but so we get married, and she knew I did investing in college, and I flipped 4 houses in college. So but we get married, and then I dropped this bomb in her lap. She grew up in a traditional family. Get a job, work hard, retire. I was like, hey babe, I want to start flipping houses. And she's a little reserved. She's like, okay. But she was very supportive, went along, got our first deal like really quickly, and like she was hooked. So ended up buying more rental properties. We both had jobs and started flipping houses occasionally. 2014 got my license. 2015 went full time. And then over the years we've done somewhere around 200 projects, and had a lot of fun doing it. This year we actually published a book kind of telling, sharing a lot of our experiences and tips that we've learned along the way. You can catch it on Amazon. I put it on for like the lowest possible price Amazon lets you put it at. 99 cents for this ebook. Top tips after 100 flips. You can check it out there. I'm also one of the top growth leaders with eXp Realty. And as far as what I do today, there's 2 main focuses that I'm focused on today. One is invested agents. That's who's really hosting this event. Invested agents is the online, or it's not the online, it's the platform that we use to educate folks on how to build wealth and how to build passive income through real estate investing. And that includes the hundreds of real estate agent partners on our team, but also a lot of other folks that aren't licensed, or maybe they're getting their license, that want to learn more about real estate investing. Free events, coaching, and we do tons of stuff with invested agents. And then the other thing that I'm focused on is invested equity. So all those projects that we've done, and you're going to learn the mechanics of some of that tonight, but we've used more than $19 million from individual private money lenders and equity partners to help us do those deals. That's been great, and we're going to be doing a lot more of that over the coming years. That's where invested equity comes into play, where we're going to be acquiring more affordable housing projects while we're providing a good return to our investors. And you can learn more about either one of those on our website, investedx.com, and that'll connect you to either one of those platforms to learn more. So that's enough about me. Now this is time for you now. I planned 10 minutes. I did that in 5. We've got 55 minutes here to share and to answer questions that you have about financing. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to invite these speakers up, and I'm going to let them tell more about what they do. And then I've got a few questions that I'm going to lead off and get the ball rolling. Along the way, there's probably either going to be follow-up questions to some of the things that they say, or maybe there's something a question you have that we don't even cover. Write it down. Put it in your phone. Remember it, because about half the time, I'm probably going to be leading the questions, and the other half the time, it's for you. So this is actually the opportunity where you can get greedy. Ask your questions to for really experienced real estate pros to ultimately take the tools home, take the tactical tips home that you can now implement in your business. Does that sound good? All right. First up, let's welcome a guy who I've gotten to know really well over the past couple of years. I've watched him from afar. Then we started collaborating on various projects. We actually did an Ironman together. That was fun. I was beating him until the last 10 minutes, and then but in any case, he's all around great guy, very well respected. He's coached a lot of the big guys in Houston. They've came through him. So let's welcome Mr. Brant Phillips. You can just sit down. We'll introduce. Let's give you the floor in a second. Then next up, we've got Mr. Eddie Gant. So Eddie is. I gotta get that timing back. It's been 2 years since I've done this. Over the years, I've called him my unofficial mentor. And what I mean by that is when he was on the stage, especially early on, but still to this day, I was taking notes. He's someone that has thousands of deals under his belt through either personal investing or properties that he's underwritten through his hard money company. Wealth of knowledge, and despite being from Mississippi, he's actually pretty sharp. I want to welcome Mr. Eddie Gant.
Shots fired.
If it rings, say, hello, this is Eddie. I can buy your house today for cash.
We may do some live call training here.
Tell them to call me.
All right. So we've never done this format before. It's going to be fun to see how this works. I've got my trusty book here. See, I can make Mississippi jokes because I went to A&M.
How'd that football game end up last year? I forgot. My cable went off in the fourth quarter. How'd that end up?
We're talking about this year.
Okay, my bad.
This year. All right. Way back when, Mr. Gant. Yeah. Oh, other Chris. There's more than one Chris here. So, Eddie, how did you finance your first deal?
Hard money lender.
What rates
you want me to elaborate on it?
Yeah.
Make it interesting?
Give us a little bit more
those
there.
one-word answers? Well, it's June of '99. Dating myself a little bit here, okay? The only advantage I got over the audience is I'm a little more experienced than probably most of them. Most of them probably smarter than me, and that's not meant to be a joke. But, I did not know any better. I remember getting the house under contract in a subdivision called Willowwood at 249 and Beltway 8. Smiling Wood Drive was the name of the street. You never forget those things. And I remember going back to my truck after I got the contract signed. It was before I was an agent. I had, obviously, the track form. And I went, yes! And then the next thought was, okay, what do I do now? I honestly did not know the next step to do. I didn't know necessarily to get the contract over to the title company. I didn't know necessarily where am I going to get the funds, okay? And I went through a hard money lender. I'll never forget it. It was 16 and 7/8% and 1 point for a year to keep the usury or keep the interest rate below the usury of 18%. And I paid 16 and 7/8 and 1 point to a hard money lender out of Dallas, Texas, that I had met through a meeting. Probably was the Rich Club. I'm pretty sure it was the Rich Club because it was the first meeting I ever went to, which was held back in those days Saturdays at the Hilton on the University of Houston campus, for those that remember. And got a referral to a title company, took a Texas American Title up on 1960, handed them the contract. We tried to hand it to another title company, and I've never been one to throw mud publicly, so I will not name that title company. But they looked at me and go, "No, we don't want that. You're a flipper wholesaler. We don't want your business," and that's the truth. And so I took it to Texas American Title, and that started a long-term relationship with Texas American Title, and my guy out of Dallas funded it for me.
Love it, love it. So, back to getting my sequencing in. We need to do a little introduction first. I think we skipped a step. Well, tell folks about you and what you do and your background.
I moved to Dallas, Texas when I was 20 years old. I was going to school at Mississippi State, majoring in civil engineering, living in a fraternity house, and I partied all the time. And I was not eligible to go back in school for the fall, so I needed an excuse not to be back in school. So I moved to Dallas, Texas, and I planned to come out for the summer or so, and never went home. And I went back to school at University of Texas, Arlington, finished up my civil engineering degree in Dallas-Fort Worth, went into the power plant business, soon moved over to the refinery business, and I did concrete and steel work for 16 years out here on the ship channel. That's what brought me to Houston, was the ship channel. And I walked into my job in that June of '99, and I quit. And I was asked by all my coworkers that I'm still friends with some of these guys today. They accused me of going to work for the competition. I said, "No, I'm really not. I'm really not." I said, "What are you going to do? What are you going to do?" I said, "Well, honestly, I'm going to play golf tomorrow. Debbie and I are going to Vegas this weekend. I get back Monday, I'll figure it out." And then Monday, I was in the flipping houses business back before HGTV Cool to Do It. You know, for those of you who remember the old country song, I was country when country wasn't cool. I was flipping houses before flipping houses was cool, and that's what did it. And I bought the house on Smilingwood over there. And then it started.
Love it, love it. Brant, tell folks a little bit about you and then how you financed your first deal.
Yeah, so, I can go. Eddie's busy. Brant by his house. So, long story short, I bought my first deal also with hard money. Now, kind of reverse the story a little bit. After, high school, I wasn't going to go to college. The word college never came up in my household. Nobody ever went to college, never ever talked about that. So I moved to Dallas because I grew up in Dallas, went to high school in Houston. I packed my bags the day after graduating, and parents said, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "I ain't got nothing else, so I'm going to go back home. I'm going to go back to Dallas with, some of my buddies from growing up." And I got a job loading trucks in a warehouse, and it was horrible. And I did that for 6-7 months and talked to some of my buddies, and they were going to college and doing this and this and that. I wanted to go to the military. I couldn't get in. I had multiple injuries and issues. So I ended up going to college, went into law enforcement, ultimately, and did that for about 7 years. And I just didn't fit in after we had a new change with our chief and the politics game. We had our first child, and I said, just told my wife, I can't do this. I can't play the politics anymore, So got a corporate job, and some of y'all have heard the story before. I got a corporate job, and I was not excited about that, but I'm like, maybe the grass is greener. Come home from the corporate job. My wife's happy because I'm not, a police officer. I'm working nights and doing whatever I do as a police officer, and she comes home. I come home from work that first day of corporate America, and she's like, "Babe, how was it?" And she's got a nice dinner cooked and all that. And I remember just sitting there, I'm like, I think I hate it. Yeah, pretty sure I hate everything about it. But I'll do it, but I'm going to figure something else out. So long story short, it took me about 4 years to figure something else out. I spent a couple years getting suckered into the trap a little bit, right, of being comfortable and like, I can, kind of just sacrifice dreams and goals and kind of get sucked in, right? Like my father did, to be quite frank, And but I fought it, and so I started doing research. I went to the bookstore, and for you young kids out there, that's like it was a building, and they actually sold books in it, and you had to pick them up and read them. You didn't listen to it or watch it on a video or something. It's an amazing thing. And so the funny thing is my wife and I, we had just finished paying off like student loans, and we had credit cards. We had no idea about finances, and we had got to a place so we got to a place where we had no money, and so that was good because we also had no like debt. And I remember it was kind of funny story. I saw a Robert Allen book, No Money Down, back then, and I'm like, that's right, that's talking to me because I have no money. And then I read Robert Kiyosaki, and I also read a personal development book by a guy by the name of Tony Robbins. Okay, so the funny, getting into the answer to the question how I did my first deal was I go into January 2007, and my wife and I live in an apartment, no money, and I went to Rich, and I went to Lifestyles Unlimited, and came home, reading my Tony Robbins book, reading the Kiyosaki stuff, and I told my wife I'm going to buy 10 rental properties this year, and she's asking, how in the hell are you going to do that? We don't have any money. You've never done any real estate. You never had a business. What are you smoking here? And so I went and got a poster board, put it on the wall of our apartment. I drew 10 squares in. I said, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to figure it out. Found a wholesaler, met a wholesaler at Rich. We're still friends to this day. I probably bought 75 houses from this guy. Found me a deal. I met a hard money lender at the event. One of your friendly competitors. It wasn't Eddie. Could have made you a lot of money if I had seen you at the event. But anyways, I got this deal under contract, and just like Eddie, I said, how in the heck am I going to pay for this thing? So I had a credit card that we just paid off. You guys know those credit card checks they send you? So I had a $14,000 limit, and I talked my hard money lender in, to like taking I put $7,000 down. He financed the rest, and you talk about, I was a nervous, ball of stress, but I was super clear with my contractors and blah, blah, blah. We got that deal renovated, tenant in it, and leased before my first payment was due. And I talked him into holding collateral, like a check, like real money, on one of my credit card checks is what I mean, real money, because I cashed it and gave it to him. And he gave me 100% financing the rest of the year, and did 10 rentals, refinanced them, and that's how I got started, year one. And I worked about 180 hours a week that year too.
And I love hearing those stories. I really do.
So is it still possible to buy with little or no money down?
Yes.
How would you do it?
Oh, okay. Well, a couple of different ways. If it's a company like Jet or a company like Jet, you got to be buying them pretty deep. We give you the benefit of buying it deep because we're a loan to value lender, and there's 1,000 ways to take this conversation, but a lot of lenders are not loan to value lenders; they're loan to cost lenders. Most of the national lenders that I compete with are loan to cost lenders. We're a loan to value. The best way is just take an example. Let's say you buy a house that's got an ARV. Everybody know what ARV is, after repaired value, of $200,000, and it needs $30,000 in work. Really quick, I can tell you just like that, I can loan you 110 at closing and 140 overall. How did I get there? 70% of 200,000 is 140. That's my maximum loan, locking me in at 70% loan to value. Take 30,000 off of that, 30,000 off the 140 because it needs 30 in work. 110,000 is my max advance to you at the closing table. So if you're buying that house for 90 to 104, you're probably walking to the table with zero out of pocket because you're underneath that threshold. If you're coming to the closing table paying and you paid $115 for that house, remember my max advance at closing is $110 in this example, that means you're bringing to the closing table $5,000 plus your closing costs to the table. So yes, we do, and it's very often that we do that. If you are a very strong client, strong meaning experience, credit, and cash reserves, I'll be straight up with you. We'll stretch to 75% loan to value with you often, and we do that often today. Even though that exceeds our 70% threshold, we do 75 often for if you meet those three categories. So it is possible. We do it. Another way, if you've got some great terms with a private lender, the private lender's probably willing to look at that situation to advance you 100%. Regional banks are very strong in our industry, but they're not going to give you 100%. But I do recommend that everybody have relationships with small regional banks. It's key to your success in this business, in my opinion. You're never going to get 100% loan to cost from a national lender. It's just not going to happen. So your regional hard money lenders, if you're buying at the right price, and your private money people in Brant is a master at private money, and I know I may be stealing a little bit of his thunder here a little bit, but I know you can do that, and but that's how you would do it with no money out of pocket.
So Brant, are you still doing no money out of pocket deals?
That's pretty much all we do. Jimmy, do we do 100% finance? Yeah, for the most part we do, and private lenders do. But we have similar criteria as Eddie just mentioned, right? Like it's got to meet our criteria. But yeah, with private lenders, anything's really possible, and that's the good and the ugly side of private lending. So if some of you are out here are potential private lenders, you have to really be careful and know what you're doing, because I've seen so many ugly things arise from that, of doing loans that they shouldn't have done, that they didn't know how to underwrite, or didn't know how to really screen and analyze that borrower, or screen and analyze the deal, and they get themselves hurt. So there are tons of no money down deals going on all the time, but you got to be careful. I forgot to finish too earlier. I said that Robert Allen book that I saw in end of 2006. I got to hang out with Robert Allen this weekend. It was kind of funny. Have dinner with him. We sat together and just had a great time and evening. I was like, it all started back when I saw that book, No Money Down. Anyway, so you absolutely can. And that's what drew me to real estate, right? So when I was just like burned out, I hated my job, I didn't know what else to do, right? And I was looking at business books. I went to a couple workshops on this kind of stuff, and pretty much everything I saw needed money. You need to have money or skin in the game, or you got to go get an SBA loan or something. You got to have some money, and I didn't have any money. I've always had great credit, right? And I've always maintained that. And like Eddie said, you want to have a backup plan with your local bank so you can exit out of it. And I've always had great credit, but I didn't have money. So that's what drew me to real estate, was the creative side of it. You can do no money down deals, but they got to be good deals. That's the critical part, because they're not a good deal. You're just setting yourself up to lose.
To reach the summit, which we're all wanting to do, and I know Brant would agree with me here, and Chris too. You got to have more than one pony to ride. You need a really go-to hard money lender. You need some private people to go to. You need a regional bank in your corner. I mean, you got to have more than one pony to ride here. You really do, to do everything that you want to do.
Yeah. So, Brent, you mentioned creative financing. What should folks consider when they're buying a property, either subject to or seller's financing, which they're definitely very unique in themselves, but any thoughts there?
Well, the generic answer is it's always going to come down. Does this deal make sense? Do these numbers make sense? I always like to say, what is the story, right? Like when you look at the numbers, what are the numbers? What's the story that the numbers tell, right? So I honestly don't buy very rarely do we buy on terms, right, with seller financing, but we sell a ton with owner financing on the back end, right? So, in terms of that, Chris, though, I do recommend, if you guys are out there and you're doing deals, and you're doing your own marketing, you're negotiating with sellers, you always want to ask that question, right? If they're willing to finance back to you, right? And this is where it's helpful to, you know, network, read as much as you can, and educate yourself, because there's ways that you can talk to them. You may have landlords, for example. This is a great conversation you can have if you ask them, hey, are they interested in learning about a little tax loophole where they can avoid all the gains from selling the property? And one of the ways they can do that is with long-term financing with you. Okay, there's ways that you can structure these conversations. So you always want to ask these questions. Doesn't mean they're always going to be there, but you always want to have a plan A, which may be hard money, plan B if you got a private money lender, plan C, a local bank, and then sometimes that seller financer deal does come through. As a matter of fact, we bought a property almost 2 years ago, and I was terrified at first because it was right when COVID was coming on. It was 30 acres of a rundown, beat-down subdivision. Some of you may have seen me share this on Facebook, and the grass was up this high. It looked like a third world country. And I got nervous, asked for a 30-day extension, almost backed out, had a just, heart-to-heart with the seller and said, hey, I may back out of this deal because things are going on in the world, and the deal kind of scares me already, even though we're getting it really cheap. And he's like, you know what? He's like, I would think you're crazy if you weren't a little bit nervous. So we ended up having good rapport, and I said, let me ask you a question. It's not going to affect me, but would you be interested in, carrying a note on this thing for a while? And what would that look like? ... So he eventually, we bought it for $400. He carried back a $250,000 seller finance note at 5% interest. So it doesn't ever hurt to ask, because you never know. And I'm still on that loan with this guy today, and he's asking how he can reinvest with me in some other deals.
So Eddie, you've talked about that two-prong approach, the kind of the 1-2 punch with the cash offer, and then doing the counter with the owner's financing.
That's
how does
right.
that work?
It's very effective. And I just can't even tell you guys how effective this technique is. The best way to describe these things is just do an example. Let's say you're in front of the client and you offer $100,000. And first of all, you don't ever offer $100,000. Those that know me, you always offer $100,290, $100,460. Always weird numbers. 10 on the back of the number. But just for the example, say you offer them $100,000, and you get a pretty hard reject, and they just draw a line in the sand. I'm not going to sell this house for less than $125,000. And then there's a million different combinations you can throw out there, and you said, well, for cash I'm $100,000, but I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll pay you the $125,000. I'll pay $125,000. I'll pay you $1,250 a month for 100 months. Or you can say, I'll pay you $5,000 down, then I'll pay you $1,200 a month for 100 months. A million ways to work the math where it equals $125,000. Now let me tell you, the honest to God truth, almost never do they take the owner finance terms, which you just offered them for you as an interest-free loan if you didn't run the numbers in your head. There was no interest in those numbers. But this is what it does. It makes your cash offer look better. It makes I say this a lot, it takes the sting off the low cash offer. And you didn't paint them in a corner. And it is extremely effective. And so many times they go back to the 100 cash that they just gave you the hard reject because they really don't want the $5,000 down and the $1,200 a month for 100 months. I'm telling you, it's effective and it works. And I call it the 1-2 punch.
Yeah, well, we did that. It was a lake house in Livingston. We've already sold this one. We didn't want it. Like, we got it under contract, started doing with the project it was going to take. It was just, I really didn't want it. So we went back and we were just completely straight up with them. It's like, look, it's just not going to make sense. The only way it would make sense is we had a $30,000 reduction in the cash offer or the owner's finance. And they didn't even question cash offer. And now, at that point, I was like, man, I should have asked 50. 50 off. Ended up being a good house in some ways and a horror story in another, but that's more of an Airbnb problem. But in any case, so how do you feel about using equity partners on a deal? I know, Brant, you've got some experience with that.
Yep. Well, it depends on who the partner is.
It's like, so an equity partner, and you're probably going to get into this.
Yeah.
It's like a marriage, to a degree. But go ahead.
Yep. No. So I absolutely love it. Yeah, I will say that I've had quite a few partnerships over the years. Less than 10, probably say 7 or 8. And all of them have worked out well. Like, I don't have any of these really bad horror stories, except for one, now I think about it. That wasn't, it was criminal. No, I forget about it. It was my construction partner on our construction business. But besides that, so what I've learned is this, that there is some absolutely synergistic things that can happen through partnerships that you just can't do on your own, right? So my first company that I formed was called Synergy Real Estate Group, and that was kind of my vision. I realized really soon after I did my 10 refinances and Fannie Mae wouldn't give me any more loans, I'm like, I got to figure something out. And the first thing that came to my mind was through partnerships, right? So I put together 3 partnerships my second year in real estate just to buy rental properties, okay? So there's power that can come from equity partners, okay? You just have to really, really screen these people, right? And you need to make sure, more importantly, that you're doing what you're supposed to do every day when you look in the mirror, that you're putting together a good deal, the viability of that deal, knowing the financials and working your tail end off to perform. And so if you can do that and find the right properties with the right deals, it can be great. And where it really, the things that are really have been eye-opening to me, really more so in the last few years, as I've put together some syndication deals, and some of my partners are here today. And one deal, for example, came about a couple of years ago. It's been more than 2 years ago. And my partner brought this to me, and it was a big deal, kind of scary to me to take down a loan. But when we really started looking at it with the power of partners, we brought partners in, we closed on this deal, looking at a really, really, really good return. I've got a video update, by the way, coming out tomorrow for a few of you guys that you're going to like. And then we did another syndication. We're looking at doing some more, and that's just the power of, if I was trying to pull this deal off on my own, could I do it? Maybe I could do one of them, but could I do 2, 3, or 4, or 5? Absolutely not. And so for me, it's like that power that comes in numbers that we can't do it on our own. But I tell you guys, this is when I started raising private money, when I started raising private money, I remember like it was yesterday. And I started having some people showing some interest. My wife had known how long I was working my tail off on it, trying to get some private lenders to invest with me. And she's like, man, that's great. And I was like, it's great. But at the same time, I told her, I'm like, I kind of feel like the weight of the world's on my shoulders. I told her, I'm like, look, here's the deal. I'm like, I'm going to raise this money. I'm going to do deals. But if anything ever goes wrong, we'll sell our house. We'll live on the streets. I'm going to pay my lenders first. So I'm letting you know why I seem a little stressed out. It's because I'm nervous about it while I'm excited. So I'll tell y'all, do not, and this is what I tell all my students, like, don't even think about raising a dime unless you're going to do whatever it takes to make that deal perform, right? And that's like my claim to fame after being the 15, 16 years in the business. I've always performed on everything I've done. And a lot of times it ain't been easy. But if you perform, you got the right partners, it's absolutely the gateway to, the next level of real estate. I would say that for sure. So
you touched on something that, Eddie, I asked you years ago, and it was about conventional financing, and I was hitting a brick wall. And you told me, you can't build your business off just conventional financing. It goes back to earlier, we were talking about having more than one tool from a financial standpoint. So this question, if it doesn't apply to you now, it will. And someone submitted it online too. I have a W-2 income, but my loan officer said I do not qualify because I'm self-employed and the income on my tax return is too low. What can I do?
We're talking long-term financing or short-term financing?
Yeah, this point's long-term.
Long-term financing to hold properties for rentals. Mm-hmm. Well, I think you got a couple options, but the most viable today, 2022, is the product that did not exist as recent as 4 or 5 years ago. And we call it non-QM. That means non-qualifying on your income. It's Wall Street money. Jet Lending does them. Our friendly competitors do them. We write the 30-year paper, and we send it all to Wall Street. It's the same bucket of money that used to supply back in 06, 07, 08 until it collapsed was the subprime. It's all Wall Street money. So here is the key to non-QM. They're 30-year fixed mortgages. The rate fluctuates based on your credit and loan to value and debt service coverage ratio. Everybody kind of understands credit. I think everybody probably understands loan to value. The one people don't necessarily know quite as much about is debt service coverage ratio. Now, I just said your loan rates fluctuate on those. That's also their underwriting guidelines. That is it. It's credit, loan to value, debt service coverage ratio. So let me explain debt service coverage ratio just for a second. Most of them are around 1.2 to 1.25. 1.2 means if your payment is $1,000, it must rent for $1,200. Okay? If it's a 1.25 and your payment is $1,000, it must rent for $1,250. You normally know your payment or you know your rent and you solve for the other one for your qualification. If you know it rents for $1,250 already, then that means your max payment you're going to qualify for is $1,000. So you pretty much got to have a 680 credit score to get in this game. Loan to value, the good rates start at 70. You're not going to get anything above 80, but when you go to 80, the rate's bumping up. A few weeks ago, these rates were around 4%, maybe low fours. But with everything going on, rates are on the rise. Your rates now are in the fives. But you're in the fives for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage on a non-owner occupied loan, meaning it's a rental, and you're not showing your income. Y'all, that's a pretty damn good product now, I'm going to tell you. You would have loved that product for years, for decades, because it didn't exist. And it started to come alive 4 or 5 years ago. A lot of people, how many of you have never even heard of this? Oh, see, there you go. And it's very, very prevalent out there now. And it's growing. They are extremely finicky. It's Wall Street. When COVID Monday hit, Monday, March the 9th, 2020, they all shut down. And they weren't back playing the game with us until June or July. That's how finicky they are. But it's good and healthy now. It's called non-QM, mean non-qualifying on your mortgage. But that's where most everybody goes now. The ones that don't go there will go regional banks, the Allegiance banks, the Texas Citizens banks of the world around town. You can go there. That's where most of my rentals properties are financed at. And if you don't go there, if you can show your income, you still go the old Fannie Mae. But we used to do a lot of Fannie Mae's, but those are going by the wayside because there's almost no difference between the interest rate on the Fannie Mae and a non-QM, and the non-QM is faster and easier. Did that answer? Is that fairly clear?
No, absolutely. We'll let this be the last question. We'll open up to the audience. So, Brant, can you touch on the local bank relationships and how valuable that is, whether you need them now or not, but over time, how valuable they can be?
Yeah, they're, like Eddie mentioned a few times, they're critical, and that was what I learned quickly was whenever I began in hard money, refinancing with Fannie Mae, and then they cut me off, and then I had multiple homes in hard money loans. I was like, oh crap, what do I do now? What's a local bank?
What do I do now?
Yes. And you figure it out, right? So they're absolutely critical, and that's my acquisition and long-term game plan. One-on-one. Here's the blueprint. We buy it with private money, and then we go to have loans with Allegiance Bank. We have loans with Spirit of Texas, which is, I guess, now a Simmons Bank or whatever. And so I keep those relationships. I talk to my guy at Spirit of Texas almost every single week because we're constantly doing things with them. So you got to have the short-term game figured out, and you got to have the long-term game figured out. And if you prove yourself, then there's other things that could arise, in terms of getting a line of credit, right, for your own deals, getting a line of credit to do lending to other people, for other people. So it's absolutely critical. I would venture to say I guess I'd maybe still be in business, but I may not had I not had those long-term loans or lenders, and I maybe pay a little bit more sometimes. Like maybe I could get some better financing. I don't know. But my local lenders have always been good to me. They're here, and it's like I said, it's not necessarily relationship-based lending like it is with my lenders, where things a little bit more flexible. But I've got a great relationship, with my guy at Spirit of Texas. Like I said, we talk all the time. I say, here's what I've got a development project that I've been doing on my own, and it's getting to the point where I don't know if I can do it on my own. I'm like, I'm looking for help, and don't know if I want to bring in equity partners or my local bank. So that's what we're talking. I'm like, here's what I have. Ideally, this is what I would like. What can you do? And send him. He's like, let me see. I think I can do something. And he's talking to his people. So they're critical. Is the short answer. Those relationships you can't build overnight. Like if you think you're going to need something a year from now, start now. You start working on those relationships now.
Anything you'd like to add, Eddie?
I agree with Brant. I mean, it's all of you got to have a community bank in your hip pocket. Start with one. If you got your savings and your stuff at Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, the big boys, they're never going to work with you on this stuff. Get it over. He mentioned Allegiance. You mentioned Spirit of Texas, also both good banks. I bank with those guys along with Central Bank, Texas Citizens Bank. I can go on and on and on. Plains Capital. There's a bunch of them out there.
Independent Financial's another. They're good ones.
Yeah, Independent Bank. That's right.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we're going to open up the questions to the audience. So I'm going to repeat the question so our folks online can hear. But who's got a question? Yeah. What's going on?
So thank you, gentlemen, for sharing all this. It's been awesome. What are your thoughts on unsecured lines of credit?
What are our thoughts on secured lines of credit?
Unsecured.
Okay. Unsecured. All right.
Want me to go first?
Go for it.
That's where your big boys come into play a little bit. Your Chase Banks and Wells Fargos of the world, Capital One. If you have a business license for 2 years and good credit, most of them will give you fairly easily $50,000 unsecured and up to $100,000. My experience is to go north of $100,000 is extremely difficult to get. And you basically use it like cash. You pay $300 or $500 a year, one-time yearly fee on it, and then they basically give you a checkbook, and then you can use it like cash, and you only pay interest when you got on the outstanding balance withdrawn. But that is one place at the big boys. But if any of you don't have an LLC, that's a good reason to go ahead and get your LLC, because they want to see a business license for 2 years and good credit. And if you have that, they don't look a whole lot deeper to the 50 and to the 100. They don't ask for. My experience is they're not asking for income tax returns and those things. 50 to 100 you can get from the big boys.
And on the personal side, not even on the business side, you don't need the 2 years. So that's how I started. So, Eddie financed my wife and I's first deal. And I think we had to come to the table with, $5,000 or where we were at. And it was that line of credit that I started out with Wells Fargo, and they gave me, out of college, I think I had a whopping $3,000 line of credit. And then the next year, I'd ask for a raise, and they'd bump it to 10, and then to 20, and then every year, and eventually it started capping out on the personal side. I think we're at 60, but I got one there, and then also one through the business. So those have come in handy, especially when you're doing a big flip project and you get an overrun or some surprise, and you get that liquidity.
Yeah, all this garbage you get in the mail, I get it every day. It's garbage. The interest rate's 20-something%, and it's I don't care how quick they say they can do it. It's long, but to get over 100, I found to be very difficult. But and the rates are good. Prime plus 3, prime plus 3.5, which is higher, than some of these other prime plus 1, prime plus 2. But that's still pretty cheap money for unsecured.
Yeah, Wells Fargo, I got one from Wells Fargo
I did
years
too.
ago.
Yeah.
For
I still have it. Yeah.
really easy, and it's good money. Get it if you can.
Were you a Wells Fargo customer prior to setting that up, or did you go in and set that up specifically?
I was. Yeah.
You were?
I was. Yeah.
They're going to require it anyway, so even if you're not, you'll have to open up an account. They'll do a quick credit check.
I don't like Wells Fargo, but be honest with you, I have an account over there for tenants to pay their rent into my Wells Fargo account, and there's so many Wells Fargo, I find that to be easy for my tenants
Yes.
to drop their
Yeah.
payment monthly in.
Yeah, and another thing I learned, I love the line of credit's great. It comes in handy all the time. We use it a lot. I'm a real estate guy. I'm not a stock guy, but the EXP thing. Me and Chris started doing EXP a few years ago, and I didn't have stock, so I earned quite a bit of good chunk of stock. So for those of you who have stock, I didn't know this because I'm not a stock guy, but since I've been acquiring stock the last few years, a buddy of mine, my old neighbor, is a stock guy, and he's like a financial planner, and I learned about margin loans, and those are pretty cool too. So now I do a lot of margin loans against my stock, and that's really cool. So there's ways to, some of you guys are like no money down deals, there's ways to put these deals together, right? You may have to think outside the box a little bit, but that's been a really cool thing. So I loan my stock, my margin loan out to other people, like via hard money loan basically, and I love that thing.
Yeah.
My question is, how do you find a good deal in this seller's market where people are offering more than the price of
You steal Eddie's phone and you
How do you find a good deal in this hot market?
You want to go first on this one, and then I'll go after you.
you market more than you used to have to. In 2009, you could walk down the street and trip over deals, right? And now you the same things. You have to market. You probably have to market more, okay? And you got to close better. Sometimes my acquisitions guys competing versus 10 or 15 other investors, and we're competing against Open Door and OfferPad, and it's not fun, right? There's a reason I started looking at mobile home parks and other ventures in real estate, because single family is getting so competitive. But the answer is you just do the things you used to do. You just got to work a little bit harder and probably spend a little bit more money on your marketing.
He's 100% correct on the marketing. I agree. And we all spend a lot of money on marketing to get people to call us. What I want to add to that is you'll have to get you the most comfortable pair of Nike running shoes you got and get those pretty red heels off and go get in the neighborhoods built in the 60s, 70s, and 80s and hand out flyers door to door and just get your exercise and go with it. It will pay off. But you either got to pay or you got to burn the rubber up to make it happen. You got to do one or the other. Having said that, I'll tell you this, and I've got a really good chart on it. The information came from Atom Data. Do either one of y'all use that Atom Data? Check it out. But I've got a chart that shows from 2000 to 2021 that the total number of single-family residences sold in the United States by year. And then along the chart, it has a little colored line that shows the number of investor-bought deals for the same year. And it's 2 to 8%, meaning your total market is always, your flip distress market is 2 to 8% of your total market, whether it's in times like today or times in 2008. Now, having said that, let's go ahead and say it. It's harder to find deals today because the general public's not totally stupid, okay? But 2 to 8% of the market is the distressed market. You just got to go figure out how to get a piece of that 2 to 8%. And you're going to get it by either marketing yourself to get them to call you or email you or text you, or you burn the rubber in these neighborhoods or have someone burn the rubber in these neighborhoods, putting out door hangers and door flyers on door to door for the people to call you. But there's no need for you to go to West U and hand these out on $1 million homes. You're going to waste your time. You go to Hidden Valley at Guff Bank and 45, where it was built in the 60s and 70s, and they're all brick, and you put out a couple of hundred flyers out on Saturday. You will get some calls.
And the other thing that I would say is maybe expand the type of deals you can monetize, right? So some people coming in, I can only flip, right? Well, maybe some deals work better as being a landlord. Some deals work better flip. Some deals work better for owner financing. Airbnb now. So you gotta, you don't want to get too spread thin or too, lack of focus. But, Eddie's got a lot of tools in his tool belt where he can monetize these deals. You can list it as an agent, right? And that's something that we've been focused on the last few years. Like, hey, these days I would never, talk to anybody about listing their property. But now, some of these houses are selling $500,000, $600,000, $700,000. That's a nice commission. You may just look at not only increasing your marketing, but learn how to monetize leads that you may have previously said, no, that's not a deal because it doesn't fit in this, square peg or hole or whatever. But now when you have these other options, you can learn to monetize them other ways.
Are you new in the business, I'm assuming? All right, let me tell you something. You got to trust me on this. If you stay in this business 3 years, 4 years, and really put the effort in, deals will find you rather than you finding deals. You just got to trust me on that one. Deals will find you.
To piggyback off what she said, is it beneficial to have good relationships with multiple wholesalers that constantly call you immediately?
So is it good?
Yes.
Is it good to have relationships with multiple wholesalers?
Yeah, I tell you, how many wholesalers in the room? Whew, I can say it. All right.
We got one back there.
All right. Here's what you got to understand. Let me. I hate history lessons. People don't like history lessons. It's boring. Let me take you back in history for a minute. I got in this in '99. From '99 through about 2014, you worked those wholesalers hard, and you got a lot of deals. Around 2014, 15 in there, wholesalers got smart and figured out that a landlord pay them more. So now, when you get all these messages from wholesalers, the numbers are driven by selling to a landlord who will pay more, not to another flipper. Just keep that in mind. If you want to be a landlord, there's tons of deals you can buy that will cash flow. Tons. Wholesalers or non-wholesalers. But if you're going to buy it with the intent to flip it quick for profit, you, for the most part, got to buy it a little deeper. You do. Because you got to turn this deal quickly for cash. And you got closing costs twice. You got carrying cost. As a minimum, you got some cleanup and cost, even if you don't do any rehab, and get it on MLS. So you have to buy them a little deeper. So that makes it in this feeding frenzy of a market that we're in. And it's like nothing I've ever seen. It's been there for a while, but it keeps getting more on fire as we go along, And what I'm trying to say in a big word is you can find some deals from wholesalers to flip. They're harder. If you're looking to buy and hold and rent, which is, we say up here, and I know Brant's heard this and he'll agree with me, you flip for cash, you hold for wealth. And I am a walking billboard for appreciation. I've got a ton of them. I got over 100 rentals, and they're worth a whole lot more today than they were 3 years ago, and they're worth a whole lot more today than they were 15 years ago. Did that help a little?
Yeah, to clarify, or to add a few other things to that, this is also where having a real estate license can come into play. Because if you're in a situation where you're in a competitive offer, multiple offers, going in for the flip, that kind of pricing, it's going to be challenging to win that. Not impossible, but challenging. But having good rapport with the seller and knowing the alternative end games that you have, whether that's you're going to hold it as a rental, you know landlords that would pay for it, and you also know that, hey, this rental neighborhood, it's $1,400 a month, but they're also getting $225 a night in Airbnb. So and you can Airbnb. So I know some Airbnb folks that they can cash flow $6,000 a month on this thing, and they'll pay almost full retail. So knowing those kind of things, and then the final one is being an agent that Eddie talked about. On the high end, 8% going to investors. Well, the other 90% that are sincerely interested in selling, but they're not going to sell at a discount. They really will sell, just not at a discount. If you're licensed, you have the ability to help them. Whether that's you personally listing their house or working with some other agent on your team, which is mainly what I do, you have a way of monetizing that. Or, this one's a little trick, OfferPad, Open Door, they pay realtor commissions. So the seller that really wants to sell, and they want full retail, and they want it fast, they're one of the best of everything, those easy money. Because you can go, especially with OfferPad, paying 3% commission to agents. Doing 4 with those right now. And it's completely off market. Actually, our personal rental we put on there just because OfferPad gave us full retail for it. And they're paying me 3% commission, so I actually netted more than had I put it on a market. It's crazy, and I don't get it.
I thought
that's
I
not
was
my
bad
job.
at math. OfferPads are really not good at math because I see them.
I don't know. I'll take the check.
I'll say this, I enjoy it while you can.
Yeah.
I know what it takes to run this business. You can't run it on thin margin. Zillow's already out. It's public knowledge that Open Door is losing a lot of money. I don't think they're going to be around. You can't run this business on that margin.
No, I got
So
some stories.
I've sold houses to OfferPad. They paid me a bunch of money, and okay.
Take it.
It's not my job to train them. It's my job to fill out a proper and honest seller's disclosure.
Yeah.
All right, I think we got time for one more question. All right, so last two, and then we'll close out for networking.
Okay, I'm not sure if I have the right terminology. What do you think of, I think it's called stacked credit. Have you heard of that?
I've heard of credit card stacking.
That's probably, I don't know.
I stay 9 miles away. I mean, why would you do that? It just, you're stacking debt on top of credit
I
card.
got a stack of credit cards.
I don't know, is it okay if I mention a name of a company and see if you've heard of it?
Sure.
It's called Funding Growth.
I've heard of them. I see their emails. They're national marketing. But the overall interest rate is very, very high. They're north of 20. There's no usury rules in there. Usury in Texas, if you don't know, is 18%. That's when you become usurious, and you're breaking the law, 18%.
At that point, an equity partner is safer, a good one. I mean, not just any equity partner.
Yeah, we talked about equity partner. Let me make a quick comment. We do it from time to time. We don't advertise it. We don't market it. But here's the way it comes to us. I don't go seeking equity partners. What happens is a good, honest man or woman come to us with what really is a pretty good deal. And let's just say they're buying it for $300,000. The interest payment's going to be $4,000 or whatever it is next month. The 1st of May and the 1st of June, and they got no money in the bank. They can't make May 1 payment, and I can't do that loan for them and put them in that position. But they got a good deal. So what we'll do from time to time is, we don't do a lot of it, but we do it, is, okay, this is what we'll do. We'll partner with you. We'll fund it. You don't have to make the interest payments. We'll cover the interest payments. But you brought the deal, and we'll work some split, and it don't have to be 50-50. It can be some variation of 50-50. And that way they put money in their pocket for a deal they couldn't make a payment on, and then they walk out of the deal with, I don't know, we'll just say $10, $20, $30, $40,000, $50,000 out of the deal in 4 months when it gets sold, and we get a little cut and they get a little cut, and they didn't have to make a payment. We make the payment for them.
And now they got money, now they got the
They got money.
experience, and they got to work with someone that has more experience. Deal number 2 becomes a lot easier.
We'll do those deals. You know.
Did you have a question too? Or?
I was just going, you mentioned the Airbnb, just real quick, give me 3 negatives about having a short-term rental. What's 3 cons?
Well, so the bad lake house, one negative is your developer sues you. So that's why we sold that property. There's a gentleman tonight, so Mr. George Salas, he's got a lot of experience with Airbnbs. Definitely check with him. So ultimately, knowing you can, like you need to know that. Look at the HOA bylaws or the community bylaws. So knowing you can, it's not passive. It's active. You can make a ton of money, but it's active. You're in hospitality business. Just like when you go to the hotel, the sheets are dirty, you're pretty mad. Unlike a long-term rental where something that's non-vital messes up, I mean, you've got time to fix that. Hospitality needs to be done now. So you've got to have the systems in place to handle that. Long-term, you know, I always tell folks, if you're going to go into that, don't buy with that being the exclusive exit strategy, because in the case of if you were in a state that got shut down longer than others during COVID, and that was the only way you had making money on that deal, like if you didn't have any equity, you couldn't even sell. So I think that's dangerous. So I always like to say, hey, like, at least try to break even on a long-term basis, milk the short-term while you can, but also have the equity component if you need to sell. So those are a couple thoughts.
Can I say a few things on? I've got 4. Had 5. Lost 1 through a divorce. No, it's a joke. Everybody laugh. My wife, Debbie, and I probably had the friendliest divorce in the history of Texas. We get along great. We've talked on and on. We're business partners now. But anyway, I've got 4. It's as Chris said, and I bet George will tell you, it's a little bit of high maintenance in this. Here's the negative side. You asked the negative side. There's a game out there that they play, the general public plays. 2 games. One is they'll book a 5-7 day stay, and day 4, they start reporting problems. Pest, something dirty, and it's all a game. They're trying to get it for free. Let's quit calling them Airbnb and VRBOs. Those are booking agencies. They're short-term rentals. VRBO and Airbnb is a booking agency. Airbnb is notorious for being pro-tenant and not pro-landlord or pro-host. They call you a host instead of a landlord. And they're going to award the free stay way more often than not when the guest complains on day 4 of a day 5 stay. It's a game. The other game they're playing is fraudulent credit cards, because remember, you're not a check-in. You're not at the hotel checking in at the front desk. They'll book and get the code to get in through a fraudulent credit card. Now they got the now they got the code to get in, and they go move in. Normally, by the time the host is on to it, they're already there, and it's a very adversarial relationship when you show up at the door to try to get them out. And I'd like to hear George's comments later if he's faced with a lot of that. We've been faced with a little bit of it. I do not self-manage. I have a management company, and I know the trouble they go through. And I pay a commission off all my bookings, and I will keep paying it, because I got to tell you something, I ain't going to deal with that. Now, you asked about the negative side. The positive side, we're making a little more money than long-term rentals. We are, okay? We're making more. But I think the properties are better taken care of, because you got a tenant coming in for 3 to 5 days, a month, sometimes 2 months, and you got a cleaning crew going often and checking on it and doing little tedious stuff and keeping it clean. I've rented to people for a year on a regular long-term rental that when I check them out at the end of a year, that place ain't been vacuumed once, okay? So our maintenance is higher on long-term rentals, in my opinion, than short-term rentals. So that's a positive. But you have to make more money because you're now paying utility bills, you're paying internet, Wi-Fi, cable, whatever you're paying, because you got to have that. So you have to make more money because your expenses are higher. Is that fairly clear?
All right. I think that about wraps it up. Let's give our guests here, special guests, a round of applause. Thank y'all. So, is this style of event, is this worth doing again? Should we do this again? All right. Well, we might do that. Say if you got an email from me on this one, you'll probably get another one for next month. So appreciate it. Definitely reach out to us if you haven't already on social media. This is all live stream. Leave a comment, leave us a review. You can check more about what we do at investedx.com. And Brant and Eddie, reach out to them. Hang out here for a little bit, and thank you all for coming. Thank you.
Hey, bud.